Hi, I'm Brad Vassar with BCU Insight here with Karla Redditte from NBC 12 and Evening Anchor. Karla, how are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing good. First of all, how are you? Are you safe and healthy?
Safe and healthy. Yes, we're all practicing social distancing and all that good stuff. So far, so good around here at NBC 12.
Good, good. And so, as you know, we're here to talk a little bit about how you got into the industry.
Okay.
And we'll probably start talking a little bit about quarantine and how 12 is tackling that.
Okay.
But first, I'm dying to find out how you perfected that amazing anchor voice.
Really, really, I'm not sure. I've kind of always had it. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and so I think I do have this southern, like a southern drawl, just a little bit. And really, I got it from my parents. They never allowed me to whine as a child, and so I think I always grew up just talking as they talked. And they both have, I guess, the same tone of voice. And my dad has this deep voice, and my mom is not too high, but not too low either. So I think I'm kind of in between that. So I think between my parents and then training at University of Missouri, I think that kind of made the voice that you hear today.
Right. For a lot of students, doing that is really difficult.
Yeah.
You've nailed it. So you just said you
Well,
went
thank you.
to you just said you went to school in Missouri. You also studied in New Orleans, right?
I did. For undergrad, I went to Loyola University in New Orleans, and then I completed that. But I think after I graduated from Loyola, I kind of realized my resume tape wasn't you know as good or what I saw other students were producing around the country. And so that's why I decided to go to grad school at the University of Missouri, because that school actually owns an NBC affiliate. And so when you go there, you're actually working and honing those skills, but you can also transfer that to a good resume tape. So I took advantage of that. It was a 2-year program, and I've been soaring ever since.
Right. So you had a reel like the rest of us too.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely.
how many stand-ups would you say you had to do to get that perfect?
I'd say oh goodness, when it comes to a reel, for that I probably had at least 10 to 12, because I mean we were working the entire semester. So I had a pretty good, a pretty good stash of stand-ups and, of course, anchoring and things like that on that tape.
And you wanted to be an anchor before a reporter, am I right?
Actually, I wanted to report. I even applied for my first job as a reporter because I love going out, and I still do. But my first job was in Biloxi, Mississippi at WLOX. And at the time, the news director needed a weekend anchor and a reporter during the week. And so he actually called me to say, Karla, we need a weekend anchor. And I said, well, I'm really not trained to to be an anchor. And he said, we'll train you. And so that's how I really got into anchoring. I started out, though, as wanting to report.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow. So when did you decide that you wanted to go the journalism route? Was that in college or before?
definitely before. I think really just growing up, I had parents who were considered news junkies. I mean, they always watched the news. And so really growing up, I watched the news, and I got to the point where I would compare different stations. So I'd see, what one station was doing as the top story, then quickly flip over to see how the other station was covering it. And so just growing up, I knew news, but I think really in high school during a career fair, and one of the anchors from one of the local stations in Memphis came to talk to my high school class. And I think then I was sold. I was sold on it. So definitely in high school, I knew this is what I wanted to do.
And when you were watching those news stations, you were probably thinking, I could do that package a
Yeah.
little bit better.
Well, a little bit, but I also love to read and write. And I knew that that's what most of their jobs were about. And so I said, well, let me just try that. But I love to write stories. I love to talk to people. And so after she came and told us a little bit about her career, that sealed it for me.
Okay. Yeah. And so how long have you been in the industry now today? I know you've been at 12 since 2012, right?
Right, since 2012. But I started in 2002, in September of 2002 in Biloxi, Mississippi. And I was there for about 3 years. And that's where I covered Hurricane Katrina as well. So a lot of good experience there at that first job.
Right. So do you remember how large the market was there?
Oh goodness. Biloxi is probably in the 150, 150-ish range. At the time, we were the only station there in Biloxi. I believe now it's two, but it's always, over the years, it's been one station to try to come on board. But WLOX has always been that flagship station, the only one that could that could maintain
Right.
there in South Mississippi. So yeah, it's the market at 150-ish, maybe 157, 158.
Well, one of the challenges I think for a lot of students who are aspiring reporters is to come to terms with the fact that they're going to be most likely moving to another market in a city that they're not familiar with. So for you, even though you're super passionate about it, what was that like going from Memphis there?
It was a little bit of a difference because Biloxi is much smaller than Memphis, but Biloxi was also a military town, and so you had people coming in from all over the world. Biloxi was also huge when it came to casinos as well, and so it was a lot of great stories. Never discount these smaller markets because that's where you're going to get your most experience right there because you're going to mess up, and it's allowed in those smaller markets. If you start off in a medium to a large size market and you mess up, that may be your last your last hurrah in that market. And it will probably end your chance to go even higher. So do not ever say you don't want to go to a smaller market, whether it's near your home or not. If you get the opportunity, take it and go because the contracts are not too long and you can get 2 to 3 years worth of experience right there. And after you finish those 2 to 3 years, you're ready.
What was your
You've gotten all the
contract?
kinks out.
Yeah. Were you making any mistakes when you first got there?
No, I'm sure. Definitely. I'm trying to think back. When I started, not only was I a weekend anchor, I was also an MMJ, which means a multimedia journalist. I was doing it, the shooting, the editing, the writing, all on my own. And so, definitely when it came to perhaps shooting, I didn't have a light kit sometimes. And so, you had to make do. And then you get back and realize that your video looks horrible. And so, little mistakes like that, it teaches you what to do the next time you go out.
Right.
So, yeah, I definitely made mistakes in my first market. And still, I'm not, mistake free now, but I made more in the first market.
Right. Well, how was that like moving to a new city and not being familiar with how things work there and still having to pitch stories?
Repeat that for me again.
What's it like pitching stories in cities that you're not familiar with?
Um, once you go to a new city, you get there early enough to try to familiarize yourself with some things that are going on throughout the city. And also read the newspapers of that city. Read what's going on. The news director already knows that you're a new person coming into that city. So you're not expected to pitch, some breaking news stories or some of the hard-hitting stories right off the bat, but at least show that you're familiar with some of the local stories that are going on. They may start you off, in your first market, may start you off with maybe a lighter story. And that's fine. That gets you out into the community. You get to know and meet different people. And those people, will send different story ideas to you or send different emails to you about what's going on. So that's how you build up your credibility within a community. You'll start eventually getting story ideas. But, the news director knows it takes a little bit of time to build up those story pitches. But come in definitely with something.
2, 3, 4 story ideas.
Right, at least.
So then is it you went to Alabama from there or Georgia?
From Biloxi, Mississippi, I went on to Savannah, Georgia, and I was there as a morning anchor. And then after that, I actually took a little bit of a break, a 9-month break, and I did the public information officer role for Savannah-Chatham County Schools. I liked it, but then discovered I really missed television. So after that, I went to Huntsville, Alabama, and I was there for about 2.5 years. And then I came to Richmond in September of 2012.
Awesome. One thing I'm curious about is I think a lot of people, they associate the news with the anchor that they're watching. So what's it like being sort of a local public figure around here?
It can be fun. It can be fun because, I mean, a lot of people, they recognize you when you're out. Now, sometimes that's not so fun, especially if you're not feeling well or something like that. But of course, I always welcome anyone who comes up to me because they really don't have to watch. They don't have to watch. And so I greatly appreciate people who recognize me when I'm out. A lot of people will call and give me different story ideas, and if I can't help them, I'll pass it along to our team. So I mean, it's great, and this is a fantastic community too. So this is a great community to be known, so to speak.
So did you apply to 12, or did they pick you up? They reach out to you?
I actually applied again as a reporter. They had a reporting position, and I applied for that. But when I got here, they had a weekend anchor spot, similar to my first job. They had a weekend anchor spot here, which they hadn't advertised at that time. But when I got here for the interview, that's when I found out.
Wow. So what's it been like adapting to being an anchor, pretty much?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Richmond is a great news market because of course, you have politics here, but then you also have some great festivals going on. It's always something going on here in Richmond. So really, I mean, it's been great, really, as a reporter and as an anchor. I love being out, but I also love anchoring as well.
Mm-hmm. When you were doing mainly reporting, did you have any favorite stories that you've done between here and wherever else you've been?
Right. Trying to think just here in Richmond. Really, some of the stories have been, my favorite stories have been some of the lighter stories. So anything dealing with children and education and definitely animals, I love that. Now, everything hasn't been, those lighter stories, but the lighter ones are the ones I think I remember the most.
Cool. So walk me through what a typical day is like for you in the newsroom.
In the newsroom, these days it's a little bit different. Because we're practicing social distancing, so our hours are a little bit different. But usually when I wake up, I'm definitely checking social media, checking, different Richmond newspapers, and not just Richmond, but, just the surrounding area, newspapers from the surrounding area. Social media, see what people are talking about on Twitter and on Instagram, and of course on Facebook. These days, we're just working maybe about 3 to 4 hours. So I'm coming in, like this week, I'm working just the 4:30 and the 5:30 broadcast. So I come in at 3 o'clock, going through different emails because I've already looked at, what's happening. Seeing what the governor's talking about today because he's having different press conferences on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So just, tuning into that. So now we're not having in-person meetings. So basically when I get here, I'm reading through emails and things like that. Then pretty much it's time to go out for 4:30. Now, sometimes I may be in the 4 for, a particular story, but I'm anchoring the 4:30.
Well, before COVID, what was the day like in the newsroom?
Before, we come in at 3 o'clock, there's a news meeting. So we all used to gather into one of the conference rooms and just, throw out story ideas or talk about what we've heard, talk about what's happening on social media, what people are talking about in this community. Then basically as anchors, we'll start getting ready for the broadcast. That includes going through all the scripts because we were anchoring several shows, several half hours. So we're trying to read through all the scripts, making sure the grammar is correct, making sure the facts are correct. Talking to some of the reporters just to see perhaps if there's a funny name or a name that's kind of hard to pronounce. Go ask the reporter, how do we pronounce this name? And just, little things like that to make sure we're giving a great presentation. And so we know what we're talking about. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of doing our research up until it's time for us to go on air. We're also sometimes shooting different commercials. Our marketing team has several assignments for us sometimes that we have to take a break and do that. So, we'll be busy with that. We have, let's see, in the afternoon, we have news from 4 until 6:30. We take a quick break. Then we do the CW news at 7 o'clock. So that's from 7 to 7:30. Then we have the 10 o'clock show, which is Fox. That's 10 to 11. And then 11 to 11:30 back on NBC 12. So quite a bit of news that we have to cover and stay on top of any breaking news that's happening.
Right. So do you only have in between those shows to go over those scripts and talk to the reporters and producers?
Not a lot of time to go over the scripts, especially when we're out there. I go out at 5 o'clock, and I'm usually on the air from 5 until 6:30. So I really don't have a lot of time to look over like the 5:30 and the 6 o'clock broadcast. But I'll, when they bring out the scripts, I'll quickly look over them. But of course, before I go out there for the 5 o'clock, I will look to see what's already been written, and some of those stories I know that are coming, and so I'm already familiar with that. So if I, spot a mess up or anything like that in the script, I already know what's coming, so I can kind of gloss over that. That's why it's so important to read your scripts before you go out on air as an anchor.
So how long does it take to develop a pretty good working relationship with the other people in the newsroom, mainly like the producers and reporters?
Oh, well, we have a great team here at NBC 12. Now, I'm not sure with some of the other stations, but it was quickly I developed a great relationship with them. As long as you do your job and do what you were paid to do, you'll get along swimmingly with everyone in the newsroom. Because, you have to remember, you're all a team. You're all working together for one goal. And so, you have to hold up your end of the stick, so to speak.
So you talked a little bit about what's going on right now with your job during the quarantine. What does 12 think of all this? Do they have a plan if this goes on longer than what we expect?
We'll definitely continue social distancing, especially here in the newsroom. A lot of our reporters, and really all of them right now, are working from home. And our photographers as well. So sometimes I'll see a photographer come in and use some of the editing equipment. But that's only if, he or she doesn't have something out with them at that time. So for now, we'll continue to do that, just practice social distancing. But we're still, we still have the same deadlines because we still have the same broadcast. And so, like I said, we just have meetings, but we're not in person. We're just on the phone. But yeah, that's the big difference right now. And, we're going to just take it day by day once things perhaps reopen, maybe June 10th. That's when the governor is saying that Virginia will reopen. But, if that has to be extended, we have to adjust our schedules as well. But even once Virginia reopens, I still don't think that we'll just all pile back in the newsroom on June 11th. That's not how it's going to work. I do believe that we're going to just ease right back into what we used to do.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the hiring process to get a job in the industry. What sort of level of confidence do you have to go into your interviews with? And can you walk me through like the application process?
Let's see. Well, usually you may spot like an opening online, and so you submit your work. You may have a website or something like that. So you submit your work to the news director. That news director would call you and just have maybe a brief conversation on the phone. If that news director is impressed, that news director will invite you into the newsroom, into the station, and you all just take a walk around, look at the station. The news director will ask you just common interview questions, especially when it comes to journalism. Some news directors, it depends on the market, some news directors will actually give you a quiz on what's happening in that particular market. So, you have to be prepared for that. That's why I said, always read the newspaper where you're going, whether it's for an interview or that's just your new market. Find out what's going on in that market and know a little bit of something, at least know the governor's name or the mayor's name or something like that. That news director wants to know exactly what you are bringing to the table and the potential, what you can potentially bring to the table. So just be prepared. These days, news directors are looking for someone who can do a little bit of everything. So if you are interested in reporting, but yet you have producing skills as well, that is perfect. If you can report as well as shoot your own video, that's even better. More than one skill is what many news directors are looking for these days. So no more than one thing. Definitely no social media, because you're definitely going to have to not only report, perhaps edit your own stories, but you're also going to have to transfer that to the web. So you need to know how to write for the web, that audience, then write for television. So just have a multiple skills definitely help right now when it comes to journalism. It's not just one thing.
Do you have any other advice you can give to graduates that are entering the job market this summer?
Wow. I've been reading about, especially when it comes to social distancing, I've been reading a lot about these virtual internships. Internships, we always say are very important, and they still are. But now a lot of new stations are having to change with that. But still, if you were able to get an internship and they do something a little bit different when it comes to these internships, it may be virtual, could still take it, because it's something that you will learn and something that will help you in that next job. Because this pandemic is changing a lot of careers. We're going to have to change with it as journalists. So definitely try to get your foot in the door any way you can when it comes to internships. Keep updating your websites. You may not be on campus, but if you're somewhere else and you see a story happening, take out your phone, start narrating what's going on, or just shoot some video and then edit that video and then, lay an audio track over it. That's still, that's a story. And it shows news directors that you are still, that you're committed to this career. You're still a journalist. You're still an aspiring journalist. And so just show them what you have. Show them what you can do.
All right. Well, I want to ask you before we leave, where do you see yourself in the future? Are you going to keep anchoring in Richmond?
Well, we'll see. I definitely enjoy Richmond. I enjoy this area. I enjoy the people of the area. But, if New York or something calls, I may pick up the phone. So, but no, I definitely love the Richmond area. And, if something's not happening here in Richmond, it's so easy to jump in the car and go to Baltimore or Charlotte or anything like that. So I do love this area. The people have been fantastic. So I'll be here at least for a while.
And other than children and animals, what's one story you want to report on?
Oh, goodness. You said that I want to report on?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I would think some of the good things that are happening, throughout this pandemic. We have people that are building things, behind the scenes that are helping our healthcare workers. It's one man that has built some type of shelf for N95 masks to dry right there at VCU. I'd love to talk to people like him, just to see why they're doing it, what motivated them to do it. So, there's still some great stories to be had out in the community. And it's up to us as journalists to tell those stories. Of course, we always give you some of the bad numbers of people who have contracted the disease and who, unfortunately have passed away from COVID-19. But, it's also our job to tell the good that's happening behind the scenes too. So I'd love to tell some of those stories.
Everybody at the stations probably got to be getting tired of reporting on those heartbreaking stories.
Yeah, it can be pretty tough because we have to talk about it. Other people can definitely turn off the news and turn it on, something else like the comedy channel or something like that. But when we're at work, we definitely have to talk about that for several hours. So sometimes it can be hard to shut that off in your mind.
Right. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. That's probably a good place to wrap things up.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you. That was NBC 12's evening anchor, Karla Redditte. Thanks, Karla.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.